I know this might sound crazy, like something out of a late-night fever dream, but I swear on everything I hold dear, it's real. My name's Patrick Kelly, I'm 23, and I live in this quiet little suburb outside Seattle, Washington. Or at least, I used to think that's where I lived. See, about 6 months ago I died. Yeah, you heard that right. Flatlined for exactly 3 minutes during a stupid accident that shouldn't have happened. And when they brought me back, well, the world I woke up in wasn't quite the one I left behind. It was like someone had tweaked the settings on reality just enough to make everything feel wrong, like a glitch in the matrix that only I could see. Little things at first, you know? A street sign that wasn't there before, a conversation that played out differently in my head. But as the days went on, those glitches piled up, whispering that maybe I didn't really come back at all. Maybe I'm still stuck somewhere in between. Stick with me here. I'll tell you everything, step by step, because reliving it might be the only way to make sense of it. Or maybe it'll just pull you into the same uneasy fog I've been lost in. It all started on a rainy Tuesday evening in July. I'd just finished my shift at the coffee shop downtown. Nothing glamorous, just slinging lattes to tech bros and college kids to pay for my graphic design classes at the community college. I was driving home in my beat-up Honda Civic, the kind with a cassette player that still worked if you smacked it just right. The roads were slick from the downpour, and I remember fiddling with the radio, trying to find something to drown out the patter on the windshield. That's when it happened. A truck came barreling around the corner too fast, hydroplaning straight into my lane. I swerved, but it was no use. The impact hit like a thunderclap, metal screeching, glass shattering, and then this overwhelming darkness that swallowed me whole. No pain, really, just nothing. Like flipping a switch off in a room you didn't know was lit. They told me later, at the hospital, that my heart stopped for 3 minutes. Paramedics shocked me twice before it kicked back in. I don't remember the ambulance ride or the ER lights. My first fuzzy memory was waking up in a sterile white room, hooked to machines that beep softly, like they were apologizing for the hassle. My mom was there, her eyes red and puffy, clutching my hand like I'd slip away again if she let go. "Patrick, oh God, you're okay," she whispered, but her voice sounded distant, echoing in my skull. I tried to smile, to say something reassuring, but my throat was raw from the tube they'd pulled out. The doctor, a tall guy with a clipboard and a kind face, explained it all. Concussion, broken ribs, but I'd live. "You're lucky, son. Not everyone comes back from that." Lucky. Yeah, that's what they called it. At first, everything seemed normal, or as normal as you can get after cheating death. I spent a few days in the hospital, staring at the ceiling, replaying the crash in my mind. My buddies from work visited, bringing greasy burgers and bad jokes to cheer me up. My girlfriend, Sarah, she's 22, works at a bookstore. We'd been together for a year, and she sat by my bed for hours, reading me snippets from her favorite mystery novels. "See, you're like the hero who survives the plot twist," she'd say with a wink. I laughed it off, but even then, something nagged at me. The hospital food tasted off. Not bad, just different. Like the mashed potatoes had an extra spice I'd never noticed before. And the view from my window, overlooking the parking lot, seemed shifted. Was that tree always there, leaning like it was whispering secrets to the cars below? I chalked it up to the meds, the trauma messing with my head. Discharge day came, and I hobbled out on crutches, ribs taped up like a poorly wrapped gift. Sarah drove me home, her hand on my knee the whole way, squeezing gently every time we hit a bump. "Take it easy, Pat. No heroics." Home was our little apartment in Redmond, a cozy 2-bedroom we'd rented after I moved out of my parents' place last year. I'd grown up in Seattle proper, in a noisy house with 2 siblings and parents who worked too much, but this place felt like a fresh start. As we pulled into the driveway, though, that nagging feeling crept back. The mailbox. It was blue. Had it always been blue? I could have sworn it was red, faded from the sun. "Hey, Sar, when did we paint that?" I asked casually, trying not to sound weird. She glanced over, frowning a bit. "Paint what? It's always been blue, babe." Her tone was light, but it hit me like a chill. Okay, maybe I was misremembering. Concussion, right? Inside, things got weirder. The apartment looked the same, cluttered kitchen, my sketches pinned to the fridge, Sarah's books stacked everywhere, but the air felt thicker, like walking into a room after a storm. I collapsed on the couch, and Sarah made tea, humming a tune I didn't recognize. As I sipped it, I noticed the clock on the wall. It was one of those analog ones with Roman numerals, a gift from my aunt. But the hands, they seemed to tick backward for a split second when I blinked. No, that couldn't be. I rubbed my eyes, blamed fatigue. That night, as I lay in bed, Sarah curled up beside me. I couldn't shake the unease. The streetlight outside filtered through the curtains in a pattern that felt new, casting shadows that danced just a little too purposefully on the ceiling. I drifted off eventually, but my dreams were fragmented, echoes of the crash, mixed with glimpses of a world where colors were inverted, where faces I knew smiled with too many teeth. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee brewing. Sarah was already up, scrolling on her phone at the kitchen table. "Morning, survivor," she teased, sliding a mug my way. I grinned, but as I reached for it, my eyes caught the calendar on the wall. July 15th. Wait, that couldn't be right. The accident was on the 12th. I'd been in the hospital for 3 days. Shouldn't it be the 15th? No, hold on. I counted back. Crash on Tuesday the 12th, hospital Wednesday through Friday, yeah, Saturday the 16th, but the calendar said 15th. "Sar, is this thing off?" I pointed, heart picking up speed. She looked up, puzzled. "What do you mean?" "It's the 15th. A cold prickle ran down my spine. I grabbed my phone, same date. But in my head, the days didn't add up. It was like I'd lost an extra day somewhere in that 3-minute void. I tried to brush it off, focus on recovery. Spent the day binge-watching shows, but even that felt glitchy. In one episode of my favorite sci-fi series, a line of dialogue hit different. "The Matrix has you," but the character said it with a smirk that wasn't there before, like they were looking right at me through the screen. Paranoia, I told myself. That afternoon, I decided to call my best friend, Mike. We'd been buddies since high school, shared everything. "Dude, you scared the hell out of us," he said when he picked up. "Glad you're back in the land of the living." We chatted for a bit, but then I mentioned the date mix-up. "Wait, the accident was on the 11th, man. You were out for a day longer than you think." His words hung in the air. "No, it was the 12th. I remembered the radio announcer saying it was Tuesday, but Mike insisted, and when I checked online news about the crash, sure enough, July 11th. A small discrepancy, but it burrowed into my brain like a worm. As the week wore on, the glitches multiplied. Subtle at first, like whispers in the wind. The neighbor's dog, Buster, a golden retriever I'd petted 100 times, now had a black spot on his ear that hadn't been there. When I asked the owner about it, she laughed. "He's always had that, Patrick. You feeling okay?" "Yeah, sure." Then there was the scar on my arm from a childhood bike accident. It was gone. Vanished like it never happened. I stared at it in the mirror, tracing the smooth skin, my reflection staring back with eyes that seemed a shade darker. Sarah noticed me zoning out more, asked if I needed to see a therapist. "It's normal after trauma, Pat. Talk to me." I wanted to. But how do you explain that the world feels edited, like someone's gone through and tweaked the details just to mess with you? One night, about a week after getting home, I couldn't sleep. The apartment was too quiet, the kind of silence that presses in on you. I got up, padded to the kitchen for water, and that's when I saw it, a shadow in the corner of the living room. Not a person, just a distortion, like heat haze over pavement, but inside. It shimmered then faded when I blinked. Heart pounding, I flipped on the light. Nothing. But the air felt charged, like static before a storm. I told myself it was my imagination, crawled back into bed, but sleep brought nightmares of falling through cracks in reality. Voices murmuring that I wasn't supposed to come back. The real turning point came 2 weeks in. I'd started venturing out, hobbling to the corner store for snacks. The streets looked the same, wet pavement, evergreens lining the sidewalks, but the signs were wrong. The grocery store I'd shopped at for years was now called Evergreen Market, instead of Greenleaf Groceries. I froze outside, staring at the neon letters. When did they rebrand? I muttered to myself. Inside, the layout was flipped, produce on the right instead of left. The cashier, an older lady I'd chatted with before, smiled blankly when I asked, "Rebrand? We've been Evergreen for decades, hon." Her words echoed in my head as I left, bags forgotten on the counter. Back home, I dove into my phone, searching for old photos. There, a snapshot from last Christmas. The store sign clear in the background, Evergreen Market. But I remembered Greenleaf, swore by it. Panic rising, I scrolled through more pics. My high school diploma. Wait, the school mascot was a wolf now, not a bear? Childhood memories flooded back. The bear logo on my Letterman jacket. But the jacket in my closet had a wolf embroidered on it. I sat on the floor, jacket in my lap, breath shallow. What the hell was happening? Was I losing my mind, or had dying punched a hole in the fabric of my world? Sarah found me like that, tears streaming down my face. "Pat, what's wrong?" "You're scaring me." I spilled it all, the dates, the signs, the shadows. She listened, holding my hand, but her expression shifted from concern to something like pity. "Babe, maybe it's post-traumatic stress. Let's get you help." No, it wasn't that. It couldn't be. That night, as we lay in bed, I heard her breathing even out, but mine stayed ragged. And then, in the darkness, I felt it, a subtle shift, like the room tilting ever so slightly. I glanced at the window, and for a moment, the stars outside looked arranged differently, a constellation I'd never seen winking mockingly. The glitches weren't stopping. They were getting bolder. One evening, While Sarah was at work, I decided to drive to my parents' house, craving familiarity. The route was etched in my memory, straight down 405, exit at Bellevue. But halfway there, the highway signs changed. Bellevue became Bellevue with a V. I pulled over, hands shaking on the wheel. Google Maps confirmed it. Bellevue always had been. According to the app, my childhood home was in Bellevue now. I turned around, heart racing, and sped back to the apartment. When I got there, Sarah's car was in the driveway, but she wasn't due home for hours. Inside, she was cooking dinner, humming that unfamiliar tune again. "Early shift end?" I asked, voice tight. She turned, smiling. "What? I was off today, silly. We talked about it this morning." We hadn't. I knew we hadn't. The conversation replayed in my mind, her saying goodbye, kissing my cheek, mentioning a late close. But here she was, acting like nothing was amiss. I forced a nod, ate in silence, but inside, dread coiled like a snake. Was she different too? Her laugh sounded a touch higher, her hair a shade lighter. Or was I just seeing ghosts where there were none? As days blurred into weeks, the anomalies stacked up, each one chipping away at my sanity. The coffee shop where I worked, the logo had an extra swirl in the Steam graphic. My boss, when I called to check in, referred to it that way without batting an eye. My sketches on the fridge, ones I'd drawn of Seattle's skyline, now showed the Space Needle with a subtle twist at the top, like it had been redesigned in some alternate history. I stopped going out, barricaded myself in the apartment, scouring the internet for answers. Forums about glitch in the Matrix, stories popped up, people describing similar shifts after near-death experiences. Mandela effect, they called it, but this felt personal, targeted, like the universe was rewriting itself around me, erasing the old Patrick bit by bit. One stormy night, the power flickered. I was alone, Sarah at a friend's, and the darkness closed in. In the brief outage, I saw them, faint outlines in the mirrors, reflections that didn't match mine. A version of me with hollow eyes, mouthing words I couldn't hear. When the lights came back, it was gone, but the mirror felt cold to the touch, frost lingering on the glass despite the summer heat. I backed away, whispering to myself, "This isn't real, wake up." But I was awake, too awake. The breaking point crept closer. I started noticing patterns in the glitches, always tied to memories of my life before the crash. My sister's name, had it always been Emily, or Emma? A quick call confirmed Emily, but my gut screamed otherwise. And the shadows, they appeared more often, lingering in corners, shaping into forms that almost resembled people I'd known, but twisted. One whispered, so faintly I thought it was the wind, "You shouldn't be here." Chills raced over my skin, hairs standing on end. I locked myself in the bedroom, but the walls seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting like lungs. By month 2, I was a wreck. Sarah begged me to see a doctor, and I agreed, desperate for an explanation. The psychiatrist listened patiently as I rambled about the changes. "Classic depersonalization after trauma," he said, prescribing pills that dulled the edges but didn't fix the core. The world kept shifting, subtly, insidiously. A park bench where Sarah and I had our first date now faced east instead of west. The sun set a minute earlier each day, or so it seemed, and in quiet moments, I'd catch glimpses of alternate paths, a flicker of a life where the crash never happened, where I was still in the old reality, happy and oblivious. But the scariest part? I started doubting my own memories. Was this the glitch, or was I the glitch? Had dying for those 3 minutes booted me into a parallel world, a faulty copy where everything was just off enough to unravel me? The unknown gnawed at me, a constant hum of dread that made every shadow suspect, every familiar face a potential stranger. That doubt, it became my constant companion, a shadow that followed me closer than my own reflection. I stopped taking the pills after a week. They made everything feel muffled, like listening to the world through cotton. But the glitches didn't stop. If anything, they sharpened. I'd catch myself staring at old photos on my phone, zooming in on details that now contradicted my memories. A family vacation to the Oregon coast when I was 10. There was a picture of me building a sandcastle with a red bucket. But in the new version, the bucket was yellow. I asked my mom about it over the phone one afternoon, trying to sound casual. "Hey, remember that trip to Cannon Beach? What color was my bucket?" She laughed warmly. "Yellow, sweetie. You were obsessed with it because it matched the sun." My stomach dropped. I hung up quickly, claiming a headache, and deleted the photo app for a while, too scared to look anymore. Sarah tried her best to ground me. She'd come home from the bookstore with new novels, ones about alternate realities or quantum weirdness, thinking it might help me feel less alone. "See, you're not the only one who's thought about this stuff," she'd say, curling up next to me on the couch, her head on my shoulder. Her touch was comforting, familiar, but even that started to feel off, like her skin was a fraction cooler, or her scent had a hint of something floral I didn't recall her wearing before. I'd pull away sometimes without meaning to, and she'd look hurt, asking what was wrong. Nothing, I'd mutter, hating myself for the distance growing between us. How do you tell the person you love that you're not sure if they're really them anymore? Or worse, that maybe you're not really you? By the third month, I'd isolated myself almost completely. Work was out of the question. My boss had put me on indefinite leave, and the coffee shop felt like enemy territory with its altered logo staring down at me. I spent days pacing the apartment, notebook in hand, jotting down every discrepancy I could find. Lists of changed street names, shifted birth dates in my contacts, even the way the rain fell, harder now, like it was angry at the ground. The shadows grew bolder too. They'd appear in broad daylight, flickering at the edges of my vision, forming silhouettes that mimicked my movements, but lagged a second behind. One afternoon, while making a sandwich, I turned to grab the mayo and saw it, a shadow version of me standing in the doorway, head tilted as if studying the real me. It didn't move when I did. I dropped the knife, backing up until I hit the counter. When I blinked hard, it dissolved into nothing, but the chill lingered, raising goosebumps along my arms. I started researching more desperately. Late nights on forums, subreddits dedicated to glitches, near-death shifts. Stories poured in, people waking from comas to find logos changed, Berenstain Bears instead of Berenstein, historical facts altered, loved ones acting subtly different. Some called it quantum immortality, the idea that when you die in one timeline, your consciousness jumps to a parallel one where you survived. But in the jump, things bleed through, imperfect copies. You're in the wrong branch, one poster wrote, and the universe is trying to correct it. Another shared how they'd seen echoes, faint versions of their old life bleeding into the new. That hit too close. Were those shadows echoes of the original Patrick, trying to reclaim his place? The fear evolved into something deeper, a hollow ache in my chest. What if this wasn't my world at all? What if the real Patrick, the one who didn't swerve wrong, who didn't die for those 3 minutes, was living my life happily in the original reality, with the red mailbox and the bear mascot and Sarah's laugh pitched just right, and I was the intruder, the glitch that slipped through the crack. The thought made me nauseous, kept me up staring at the ceiling, listening to the apartment settle in ways it never had before. Creaks that sounded like footsteps, whispers and events that formed half-words. One evening, as fall crept in with its foggy mornings, I decided I needed proof, something undeniable. I drove to my childhood home in what was now called Bellevue, the route feeling both known and alien. The house looked the same, blue siding, the big oak in the front yard, but the swing on the porch was missing the chain I'd broken as a kid. My parents welcomed me with open arms, Mom fussing over my weight loss, Dad clapping me on the back a little too hard. We sat in the living room, photo albums spread out like evidence. "Show me the old ones," I said, voice steady as I could manage. They obliged, flipping through pages of birthdays, holidays. Everything matched the new memories, the yellow bucket, the wolf mascot. But then I spotted it, a photo from my high school graduation. In my memory, I'd worn a blue gown. Here, it was green. "When did they change the colors?" I asked, pointing. Dad chuckled. "Always been green, son. Go Wolves." Mom nodded along, but I saw a flicker in her eyes. Or did I imagine it? A momentary confusion, like she was accessing a script. Driving home that night, rain slicking the windshield again. I felt tears hot on my cheeks. The world was conspiring to gaslight me, rewriting history page by page. But why only me? Why not erase my doubts too? Maybe that's what the shadows were, remnants fighting back, trying to remind me. Things escalated around the 4-month mark. The glitches weren't just visual anymore, they invaded my senses. Food tasted muted, colors seemed washed out, like the saturation had been dialed down. Music on the radio had lyrics shifted by a word or two, enough to unsettle. And the whispers grew clearer. At night, when Sarah was asleep, I'd hear them from the corners. "Not yours. Intruder." Soft, overlapping, like multiple voices agreeing. I'd bolt upright, flipping on lights, searching for sources. Pipes, wind, anything rational. Nothing. One time, I swear I saw words etched faintly on the bathroom mirror after a shower. "Go back." They faded as the steam cleared, but my reflection lingered a beat too long, smiling when I wasn't. Sarah confronted me then. She'd come home early again. Another off day I didn't remember, and found me scrubbing the mirror frantically. "Patrick, This has to stop. You're terrifying me. Talk to someone real, please. Her voice cracked, tears in her eyes. I wanted to hug her, to promise I'd try, but the words stuck. Because in that moment, looking at her, I noticed it clearly for the first time, her eyes. They were hazel in my memories, flecked with green. Now, they were solidly brown, no flecks. I stepped back, whispering, "Your eyes." She touched her face, confused. "What about them? They've always been brown." The room spun. I mumbled an excuse, locked myself in the bedroom, heart hammering. Was she a replacement too? Or had the shift changed her along with everything else? I couldn't stay in the apartment after that. Packed a bag one morning while she was out, left a note saying I needed space to clear my head, drove aimlessly, ending up at a motel on the outskirts of Seattle, the kind with flickering neon and thin walls. Paid cash. No questions. There, in the dim room with its stale air, I tried to piece it together, journaling furiously, mapping timelines. The 3 minutes, I fixated on them. What happened in that void? Did I see a light, a tunnel? No, just blackness. But maybe that's where the jump occurred, consciousness slipping sideways into a near-identical world. Quantum physicists talk about infinite branches. Maybe death prunes the dead ones, shifts you to survivors. The motel became my hideout for weeks. I'd venture out for food, always scanning for changes. The city felt more foreign each time. Billboards with slogans I didn't recognize, songs on the radio climbing charts I'd never heard. People on the street moved with a subtle haste, like time ran faster here, and the shadows followed. In the motel mirror, they'd appear behind me, closer now, reaching out with wispy hands. One night, I woke to find the TV on static, though I'd unplugged it. In the snow, faces formed. My family, Sarah, friends, mouthing silently, eyes pleading. I started talking back to the shadows, desperation turning to defiance. "What do you want? Tell me how to fix this." No answers, just intensifying presence. The air grew heavy, oppressive, like the room was underwater. Dreams bled into waking, visions of the crash from outside, watching my body slump, then a pull, like threads yanking me into another car, another life. By month 5, isolation cracked me. I called Mike, my old buddy, voice shaking over the payphone. I ditched my cell, paranoid about tracking. "Man, I need to see you. Something's seriously wrong." He sounded worried but agreed to meet at a park we used to hang at in high school. The place looked altered, benches repainted, paths rerouted, but he was there, same lanky frame, same grin. We sat, and I poured it out, the shifts, the shadows, the fear I was in the wrong place. He listened without interrupting, nodding slowly. "Pat, I've been reading about this. NDEs can mess with your perception big time. Maybe it's all in your head." But his words felt rehearsed, and when he hugged me goodbye, his grip was off, too tight, like he was holding something back. That night, back at the motel, the biggest glitch yet. I was brushing my teeth, staring at the mirror, when my reflection paused. I moved my hand, it didn't. Then it smiled, a slow, knowing smile, and spoke, voice muffled through glass. "You're not supposed to be here. Give it back." I stumbled away, screaming, smashing the mirror with my fist. Blood trickled, but the pain felt distant. Shards on the floor showed fractured versions of me, each whispering the same. I checked out at dawn, drove nowhere fast. The road blurred with tears, rain starting again like it sensed my unraveling. Pulled over on a deserted stretch, engine idling, contemplating the void that had claimed me once. Could I go back willingly, end it, and snap to the right reality? But fear gripped me, no guarantee. What if there was nothing, or worse? Instead, I headed to the hospital where they'd revived me. Maybe answers there, records something. The building loomed familiar yet skewed, entrance on the wrong side. At the desk, I asked for my files, claiming follow-up. The nurse typed, frowned. "Patrick Kelly? Accident in July?" She paused. "Sir, there's no record of you beyond a John Doe transfer. You sure you're in the right place?" My blood ran cold. No record? I thanked her numbly, fled to the parking lot. Sitting in my car, engine off, rain drumming, the shadows converged. Not just in mirrors now, outside the windows, pressing against glass, forms solidifying into almost people. My family, Sarah, Mike, pale echoes, eyes accusatory. "Return it," they chorused faintly. "The life isn't yours." I don't know how long I sat there, paralyzed. But in that storm, a realization dawned, terrifying in its clarity. Maybe I didn't jump alone. Maybe something came with me. Or perhaps the 3 minutes let something else in, wearing my skin in the old world, while I haunted this one. The whispers swelled, promising if I let go, I'd find peace. But whose peace? As the shadows thickened, blotting the rain-streaked view, I started the car, hands trembling. I couldn't end here, not yet. There had to be a way back, a way to seal the glitch. But deep down, a new dread bloomed. What if there was no going back? What if this fractured reality was my forever, and the echoes were closing in to claim what was left? I drove through the night, windshield wipers slashing at the rain like they were trying to cut the darkness itself. The echoes clung to the edges of the glass, faces pressing close whenever I slowed down. My mom's worried eyes, Sarah's soft smile twisted into something pleading, Mike's mouth moving silently over and over. I kept the radio off. Every station felt wrong now, songs I half recognized with melodies that veered off into unfamiliar territory. My hands ached from gripping the wheel, knuckles white, but I didn't dare stop. Stopping felt like surrendering, like letting whatever was chasing me finally catch up. By dawn I was deep in the Cascades, winding up old Forest Service roads I'd hiked as a kid with my dad. The trees looked taller here, denser, their branches knitting together overhead until the sky was only a thin gray ribbon. I needed somewhere quiet, somewhere the world couldn't rewrite itself so easily. There was an old ranger cabin my family used to rent sometimes. No power, no cell service, just a wood stove and silence. If anywhere could give me a break from the shifting, maybe it was there. I told myself I'd stay a few days, clear my head, figure out a plan. Anything to stop feeling like I was dissolving at the edges. The gravel road was worse than I remembered, potholes hidden under puddles, but the Honda limped along until the cabin came into view, small, weathered cedar, chimney cold. I parked, grabbed my duffel from the back seat, and hesitated before getting out. The forest was too still. No birds, no wind in the branches. Just the soft drip of water from the eaves and my own breathing, loud in my ears. I unlocked the door with the spare key still hidden under the loose step. Thank God that hadn't changed, and stepped inside. The air smelled exactly like it always had, pine, old wood, a faint trace of smoke from the last fire years ago. For the first time in months, something felt right. I dropped my bag, lit the stove with shaking hands, and sat on the creaky couch, staring at the flames until my eyes burned. Exhaustion hit hard. I hadn't slept more than an hour or two at a time since the motel. I told myself I'd just rest my eyes for a minute. I woke to darkness and the sound of scratching. Not loud, just steady, patient, like fingernails on wood, coming from the walls. I sat up slowly, heart already racing. The fire had burned down to glowing coals, casting long, wavering shadows across the single room. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It moved, circling the cabin slowly, as if whatever was making it was walking the perimeter outside. I grabbed the poker from the hearth, gripping it like a weapon, and crept to the window, peered through the glass into black nothing. The scratching stopped the second I looked. Silence rushed back in, thick and watchful. I didn't sleep again that night. Every small sound, the cabin settling, water dripping from the roof, felt deliberate. Around 3 a.m., I heard footsteps on the porch, slow, measured, back and forth, like someone pacing. I stood frozen by the door, poker raised, listening as the boards creaked directly in front of me. Then a soft knock, 3 times, gentle, almost polite. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat closed up, breath shallow. The knocking stopped, and the footsteps moved away. When pale morning light finally leaked through the windows, I opened the door with the poker ready. Nothing. No prints in the muddy gravel. No sign anyone had been there. Just the forest, quiet again, watching. The next few days blurred into a tense routine. I chopped what I didn't need, just to have something to do with my hands. Cooked over the stove, ate canned soup that tasted exactly like I remembered. The isolation helped at first. No new glitches here. The cabin stayed the same. The trees didn't rearrange themselves overnight. But the quiet started to feel less like peace and more like anticipation, like the world was holding its breath. On the 4th night, the whispers came back. They started low, almost indistinguishable from the wind picking up outside, but they grew clearer, threading through the cracks in the walls. My name, over and over. Patrick, Patrick. Different voices. Some I recognized, some I didn't. Sarah's soft tone, my mom's worried one, and others that sounded like me, but hollow, echoing. I pulled the blanket over my head like a kid hiding from monsters, but the voices followed, patient and insistent. You took it, give it back, not yours. I don't know when I started answering them. Maybe the 5th night, maybe the 6th. At first just whispers. Leave me alone. Then louder, angry demands for them to tell me what they wanted. They never answered directly, just repeated the same phrases, overlapping until it felt like a chorus inside my skull. I barely ate, barely slept. My reflection in the small bathroom mirror looked gaunt, eyes ringed with purple, skin pale from lack of sun. But the reflection moved when I did. For now, one afternoon I hiked deeper into the woods, needing to move, needing distance from the cabin that no longer felt safe. The trail was overgrown, but I found the little creek I used to play in as a boy. I sat on a mossy log, watching the water tumble over rocks, trying to remember what it felt like to be normal. That's when I noticed the silence again. No birds, no insects, just the creek. And then, faintly, the scratching started behind me. Not on wood this time, on bark. Slow, deliberate carving. I turned, 20 feet away, on the trunk of a massive cedar. Fresh grooves were appearing in the bark as I watched. Letters forming, one by one, like an invisible hand was writing them. My breath clouded in the cold air as I stared. WRONG, then lower, GOBACK. The grooves stopped. The forest stayed silent. I backed away slowly, then ran, crashing through underbrush until my lungs burned and I stumbled into the clearing around the cabin, slammed the door, barred it with a chair, and sat shaking on the floor. That night the voices changed. They sounded almost kind. "We can help you," Sarah's voice murmured. "Just let go. Come home." My mom's voice joined in, warm and loving like when I was sick as a child. "It's okay, honey. You don't have to fight anymore." Tears streamed down my face because part of me wanted to believe them. Part of me was so tired of holding on to a world that didn't want me. I found myself standing at the door near dawn, hand on the knob, ready to open it, ready to see what was waiting. But something stopped me, a flicker of stubbornness, or maybe fear of what letting go really meant. I backed away, sank to the floor, and cried until there was nothing left. The next morning I packed my bag with trembling hands. I couldn't stay here anymore. The cabin wasn't sanctuary. It was a trap, drawing whatever was after me closer in the isolation. I needed people, noise, proof that reality still existed outside my head. I drove back down the mountain, white-knuckled the whole way, half expecting the road to vanish or twist into something unrecognizable. It didn't. Seattle appeared on the horizon exactly where it should be, gray and rainy and real. I didn't go to the apartment. Couldn't face Sarah, not yet. Instead I checked into a busy downtown hotel, the kind with constant foot traffic and lights that never fully go out. Surrounded by strangers, the whispers faded to almost nothing. The shadows kept their distance. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. But sleep brought dreams more vivid than ever. I was back in the blackness of those 3 minutes, floating weightless. Only now there were two of me. The original Patrick, whole, untouched, reaching out from a bright, warm place. And me, frayed at the edges, being pulled the other way by cold hands. We locked eyes across the void, and he didn't look angry, he looked sad, like he knew what I'd taken without meaning to. I woke gasping, sheets soaked with sweat. The hotel clock read 3 a.m. exactly, the same minute my heart had stopped all those months ago. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my hands in the dim light from the city outside. They looked solid enough, but I could feel it now, the thinness, like I was a sketch someone had erased part of and redrawn slightly wrong. I realized then that running wouldn't fix this. Hiding wouldn't either. The only way out was through, back to the beginning, back to the moment everything cracked open. I had to find a way to give the life back. The decision settled over me like a cold blanket in that hotel room, heavy but inevitable. I couldn't keep running in circles, patching over the cracks with denial and distance. If I'd somehow stolen a life that wasn't meant for me during those 3 minutes of death, then the only way to stop the unraveling was to return it. Not by hurting myself, no. That felt too much like giving whatever was chasing me exactly what it wanted, but by going back to the place where the fracture happened, the crash site. Maybe standing there, reliving it, willing myself to cross back over, maybe that would close the loop. I checked out of the hotel the next morning, January cold biting through my jacket as I walked to the car. The city hummed around me, people rushing to work, coffee steam curling in the air, holiday lights still clinging to a few storefronts even though Christmas was long gone. Everything looked solid, ordinary, but I knew better now. The ordinariness was just a thin skin stretched over something that didn't quite fit. The drive to the intersection took about 40 minutes. I'd avoided that stretch of road since the accident, always taking detours without thinking about why. Now I forced myself onto it, hands tight on the wheel, stomach churning. Rain had turned to a light drizzle, the kind that makes the asphalt shine like oil. Traffic was light for a weekday morning. I recognized the curve ahead, the one where the truck had come barreling through. I pulled over onto the shoulder just past it, hazards blinking, and sat for a long minute staring at the spot. There were no visible scars on the road anymore. Any skid marks or debris had been washed away months ago. Just wet pavement, guardrail, and the dense evergreens pressing in on both sides. It looked innocent, but my pulse hammered in my ears like I was already back in the crash. I got out, leaving the engine running, and walked to the exact place I remembered impact happening. Stood in the middle of the lane until a car honked and swerved around me, moved to the side, boots crunching on gravel, closed my eyes and tried to summon it. The screech of tires, the jolt, the darkness rushing in. I whispered apologies to the version of me who should be here instead. I didn't mean to take this. I'll give it back. Just show me how. Nothing happened at first. Just the soft patter of drizzle and distant traffic. Then the air changed, grew heavier, like before a thunderstorm. The drizzle stopped mid-fall, droplets hanging suspended around me, glittering in the gray light. My breath caught. The world went unnaturally quiet, the way it had in the forest. I opened my eyes. Everything looked the same, but muted. Colors drained, sounds gone. And across the road, standing under the trees, were the echoes, more solid than ever. My family, Sarah, Mike, even people I barely remembered from high school, all pale and translucent, watching me with those sad, pleading eyes. Sarah stepped forward first, her outline shimmering like heat haze. She didn't speak out loud, but I heard her clearly inside my head, gentle and heartbreaking. You finally came. We've been waiting. I swallowed hard. I'm sorry. I don't know how I got here. I just woke up in this place. She nodded, as if she understood completely. It happens sometimes. When someone dies but shouldn't have yet, the thread pulls too hard. You slip sideways. He's been trying to hold on over there, but he's fading, and you're fading here. The others moved closer, forming a loose semicircle. My mom reached out a hand that passed through the air like mist. We're not angry, honey. We just want balance again. I felt tears on my cheeks, cold in the suspended rain. What do I have to do? Sarah's echo smiled softly, the real smile I remembered, the one with the little crinkles at her eyes. Let go. Trust. Step into the space between, the way you did before. We'll guide you. I looked around at the frozen world, the droplets hanging like crystal beads, the silent cars in the distance, my own car idling with the doors still open. It felt like standing on the edge of a dream you know you're about to wake from. Terrifying, but also peaceful, like finally exhaling after holding my breath for 6 months. I took a step toward them. The air rippled, and for a moment I saw both realities overlaid, the one I'd been living in, with its wrong colors and shifted memories, and beneath it the original, warm and vivid, waiting. I could feel the real Patrick there, exhausted from fighting to stay, reaching out to trade places. Another step. The echoes surrounded me now, not touching but close enough that I felt their presence like cool silk. Sarah's voice again, soft and loving. It won't hurt. Just 3 minutes like before. Then you'll be home. I closed my eyes, let out the breath I'd been holding, and stepped fully into the space they offered. Everything went black. Not the crushing dark of the crash this time, gentler, like sinking into deep water. I felt myself falling, or rising, or maybe just shifting sideways. There was no fear, only a profound tiredness releasing all at once. Voices murmured around me, familiar, comforting, hands guided without touching, and then a pull, steady and sure, like a tide carrying me back to shore. I heard beeping first, steady, rhythmic, then voices, real voices, urgent but relieved. We've got rhythm! He's back! My eyes fluttered open to bright lights and masked faces leaning over me. Paramedics. The same ones, or ones just like them. Someone was squeezing my hand. Sarah, tears streaming down her face, but her eyes were hazel again, flecked with green exactly as I remembered. She laughed through sobs when I focused on her. Pat, oh God, you scared us. Everything hurt. Ribs screaming, head pounding, but it was honest pain. Grounded. I looked past her to the ambulance walls, the rain streaking the windows outside. The date on the paramedic's watch caught my eye as he adjusted equipment. July 12th, the right day, the original day. They rushed me to the hospital, ran tests, patched me up. The doctors said I'd been clinically dead for 3 minutes before they got my heart started again. Lucky, they called it. A miracle. But as I lay in recovery, watching my family crowd around the bed, Mom crying happy tears, Dad trying not to, my sister Emily, yes, Emily, holding my other hand, I noticed the details falling into place like puzzle pieces finally clicking. The hospital food tasted right. The view from the window showed the tree leaning exactly how I remembered. When Sarah leaned in to kiss my forehead, her perfume was the same one she'd worn for years, and her laugh when I weakly joked about never driving in the rain again was pitched perfectly. The world felt solid again. Real. Days later, discharged and home, our apartment with the red mailbox, the bear mascot jacket hanging in the closet, the space needle sketches on the fridge matching my memory. I stood in the kitchen making coffee and paused. For a moment, just a flicker, I thought I saw something in the corner of my eye, a faint shimmer, like heat haze. But when I turned, there was nothing. Sometimes, late at night, I wake up with my heart racing, convinced I'm back in the wrong place. I check the calendar, the photos, Sarah's eyes. Everything lines up. But deep down there's a quiet certainty certainty that I was given a gift, a second chance in the reality I was meant for. And sometimes, when the apartment is very still and the rain taps softly on the windows, I think I hear a distant whisper carried on the wind. Not threatening, just grateful. Thank you for giving it back. I don't know if the other Patrick made it, or if he simply let go peacefully. I hope he did. I hope he's at rest, because I'm here now, really here, and I'm never taking a single ordinary, perfect day for granted again.